So you read our thesis. We were wondering what you think about the topic, if it's played a role in anything that you've done as an author or activist.
Religion has played a significant role in the gay rights movement in a couple of ways. One is it's been used as a weapon against the gay rights movement because many religious leaders believe homosexuality to be a sin, and they were determined to prevent gay people from gaining equal rights. It's still an issue today, and we see it with various religious organizations fighting against the right of gay people to marry. Even though that's a civil right as opposed to a religious right, they still believe it's something that shouldn't be granted to gay people. But when you look at some of the early gay rights movement efforts, there were church leaders involved as early as the early 1960s in trying to improve life for gay people. This was in San Francisco in particular, where a group of religious leaders got together in the face of anti-gay discrimination and all kinds of horrible things that were being done to gay people. Beyond discrimination, police brutality, bar raids, there was a group of religious leaders who got together to try to change things. And they worked with city officials in San Francisco to make things better for gay people. Also, there are many gay people who are deeply religious. Lots of gay people have left their religious beliefs behind because the religious traditions in which they were raised didn't make room for them. But an important piece of the gay rights movement, you see, that one sees early on is the formation of organizations of gay people, or gay people organizing within their religions to try to bring about change. Catholics, Jews, Episcopalians. It's still very tough for people who follow the Islamic faith. But if you look at all the various religious denominations today, there are gay organizations organized around those denominations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did some research, and we have arguments about how Unitarian churches were being created, and other subsets of religious groups that were created by the gay community to still have religion. But have you played a role in any of that? Has that been part of your life at all? Or are you religious in any way?
You ask a great question. Am I religious in any way? No. But I did attend the gay synagogue on and off over the years. The gay synagogue here in New York, Temple Beth Simchat Torah, is conservative, and I'm more to the extreme Reformed end of Judaism. So I never felt comfortable in the gay synagogue because it's conservative, not because it's gay,
Mm-hmm.
but because it's conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the prayers are done in Hebrew. I was educated in an Orthodox Hebrew school, and hated it. So the conservative synagogue reminds me of my Orthodox synagogue, so I stopped going. But there are many people who feel strongly about their religious beliefs and choose to go, and I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
And also those religious organizations have become forces within the gay rights movement. The rabbi who runs Temple Beth Simchat Torah is a very respected and well-spoken and outspoken supporter of gay rights.
Mm-hmm.
The man who founded the Metropolitan Community Church, Reverend Troy Perry, also an outspoken leader in the gay rights movement. So religion has actually has been a strong organizing force within the gay rights movement. But because so many organized religions are against gay rights, it's very complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did the topic of religion come up at all, in your book that you wrote, or?
In my book, Making Gay History, religion does come up quite a lot. In the early years, especially, I write about how religious leaders figured in the gay rights movement, the early gay rights movement before Stonewall, in the early 1960s in San Francisco, and in 1965 in particular, over an event where the police raided a New Year's Eve day ball in California Hall in San Francisco. And out of that came an organization called the Council on Religion and the Homosexual that was led by a group of religious leaders. So it was interesting for me to discover in my research how early on religious leaders played a role, an important role, in trying to help gay people gain their rights. What we've since learned is that many of the people who were behind this effort, the religious leaders who were behind this effort, were themselves secretly gay. So that they were in some ways acting in their own interests, but could bring about change or work for change quietly because they were closeted at a time certainly when no religious leader would have been open about being gay.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
So
That's like all my questions, yeah.
that's it for your questions?
Yeah.
Shall I ask questions? I can
Yeah.
make up some questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, how do gay people reconcile strong religious beliefs with some of what's written about or said about gay people and religion? Over the years, I've met any number of people who've struggled terribly with the conflict between the fact they're gay and their very strong religious beliefs. I know people who've had terrible emotional breakdowns over it. Certainly when I was young, when I was your age, I had one friend in particular who was Catholic who just could not reconcile being gay and Catholic at the same time, and felt terrible shame over his sexual orientation because of what the Catholic Church said about gay people. And I think it had an enormous impact on his life, both in terms of his excessive drinking and the fact that he was unable to form a relationship, a lasting relationship, because he couldn't reconcile the two. But other people I know managed to reconcile their beliefs and became very active in gay organizations for their specific denomination. But it's something that a lot of gay people still wrestle with.
Mm-hmm.
How do they continue to have their strong religious beliefs, Christian beliefs, or Orthodox Jewish beliefs, and still carry on a normal life? I don't know if you saw a movie called Trembling Before God. It was about Orthodox Jews who are gay and how they've dealt with being gay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a heartbreak. I took my mom to see it because I thought she'd be interested. And within the Orthodox community, there is no reconciling being gay and being Orthodox because you're simply not accepted.
Mm-hmm. You talked about the gay churches or synagogues that you've witnessed or been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in the African American civil rights movement, the churches were like a sort of a breeding ground for the movement to develop and to plan and stuff. Is there anything that has been going on or during your lifetime that you've witnessed that has started in the gay church, or any, I don't know, do you think what do you think about the movement? Do you think there's still more to go?
The Metropolitan Community Church, which has churches all across the United States, is actually a force within the gay rights movement. So that church in particular has played an important role. Very different from the role the church has played in the Black civil rights movement, because people attend their churches in African American communities as a family. Generally, they're an integral part of the community. The Metropolitan Community Church and the churches that and the organizations that were formed outside of the formal churches for gay people are not an integral part of the larger society in the way that the Black churches are. I'm not really explaining myself very well. Gay people have generally had to work from the outside in, dealing with the churches, dealing with the various religious denominations to try to get them to accept or at least get out of the way of the gay rights movement. That wasn't the case with the church in the Black civil rights movement, which was a central organizing point for the Black civil rights movement. So it's different, but religion has played a role, and an important role, just not for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh, and also, we didn't ask you before, in the beginning, but what sort of thing do you do for the gay rights movement? What's your role?
And I'm looking at the camera only because
Yeah.
I know you're. Over the 25 years I've been involved in writing on gay issues, I've often been asked about my activist work. And I came to this work as a journalist with a vested interest in the subject matter because I'm gay, and because I wanted to see things change. but I didn't think of myself as an activist until I did media for my first book in 1988, The Male Couples Guide. And I found I was being asked questions as if I were a representative of the gay rights movement. And all I was at that point was the author of one book about male couples, in which I talk about things like how do you decide who does the dishes, coming out to your families, bringing your boyfriend home for the first time to meet mom and dad. Those are the kinds of things that I wrote about. And I found myself in a role, an unexpected role, as someone who could speak on behalf of other gay people. For a long time, I would say, while I don't speak for all gay people, I can tell you what the people I interviewed had to say. And after a while, I dropped that introduction and I just gave an answer and said, this is what gay people think. And I knew enough to answer authoritatively, but I never thought of myself as an activist at the beginning. But anybody who does the work I do, writing about gay people, whether it's about history, relationships, question and answer books, two of which I've written, one for adults, one for teens, you're perceived as an activist simply because you're talking openly about this issue and challenging the status quo. So I never set out to be an activist. I set out to be a journalist and found myself in the role of an activist, which turned out to be rather exciting and fun and thrilling at times, because I got involved at a time when the change was very rapid and I could play a role in that. Times have changed now. There are so many people involved. Things have moved very quickly and my work focus has changed. But for any person who's gay and out, each of us is, in his or her own way, an activist within our own families, in our communities, at the grocery store, when when the checkout person says to me and to my partner, "Oh, are you brothers?" So suddenly we're in the role of being activists by saying, no, we are partners. We're not married, so I can't say we're husband and husband, but we are partners. No, we're not brothers. So all gay people who are out, to some degree, are activists, because we have to be. We're in the role of educating people. I had a more formal role because I wrote books, but I do it every day in my personal life.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
Planning on
coming
getting
here.
married